All right, let's get back to this now. We'll continue with the implications of the latest developments on the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. And we're now joined by legal representation from Ms. Khumalo, Magdalene Moonsamy. Magdalene, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us today here on In Focus. So the very same counsel that prevented you from being sitting brief for Ms. Khumalo has now withdrawn from the proceedings as counsel for accused number 1 to 4. First and foremost, I know your client is also watching these processes with a view of having them resolved speedily to get to the finality of the truth and what happened. So this one brings about a delay in the process, but also the intention of Advocate Teffo still wanting to be sitting brief for docket 357 and what the implications of that mean to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for those who are listening. I think the first question is, yes, Defense 1 to 4 has made many allegations against myself and my client, including harassment, which was of recent. The last harassment was just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, to my client. And accusing us of intimidation and all of those things, of which was his actions from October-November 2021. And we allowed the process of the court to take its due process and allow the court to make a determination. Now, for me, I cannot understand how there has been an intimidation on our part, because we have simply complied with the court, as I've said in the past, with every process, NPA, with the SAPs, with anyone who has called us for that purpose. On the issue of, your second question was...
I'm saying he's, of course, said he continued to be sitting brief for docket 375, which is the docket we know implicates your client as the ones, at least with their friends and those that were in the house, as the ones who should actually be standing trial instead of the 4 accused.
Understand something, with all due respect. Docket 375 was given to me, the submission, not the docket. Submission was given to me by Advocate Teffo himself when he was in prison. And that made no, it held no ground. It was dismissed. I was told to take my client to the police station, and there was no police that confirmed anything of that matter. Now, on that docket, you want to be a watching brief of Senzo Meyiwa, if I'm correct, and at the same time, you want to be the defense for 1 to 4. I need to understand how that makes sense, because these are the people that were brought before court as the accused.
Yeah. So
for me, the 375, which was demerited by the court, it had no authenticity, it had no constructive value to the court, and it was not having merit, was dismissed. So if there was such a docket, then my client would have been called, I would have been called on that docket and told that these are the allegations and your client must present herself. It did not happen.
So in your view, he is continuing, now that he's withdrawn his defense, to be watching brief for a docket that has no merit, that essentially, in your view, does not even exist in this case?
That was the court's determination, not mine. However, how are you watching brief over individuals when there are 5 accused in the dock? So for myself, I want to say that this has been, you haven't even asked me the question, and maybe I should pose the question to you. Why did a defense for 1 to 4 withdraw?
He cites harassment. He says he was harassed by the court and by the state, of course, saying this harassment is also being hashed in higher offices, accusing the office of the president of being involved.
Well, I can say to you with confidence that my client and myself have suffered harassment and intimidation by the defense from accused 1 to 4 as late of about a week ago. My point is this. What is the game plan? There's been so many accusations leveled from buying people to kill a person, then pulling the trigger, and these are all tricks and tirades. Now, he even says that his clients have asked him to consensually withdraw. My issue is, it's neither here nor there. We have a case against a defense for accused 1 to 4, which we will pursue. However, for me, the question isn't clear as to what is anticipated in terms of why did he then withdraw if he felt so strongly and then chooses to be watching brief again. Remember, this is not the first time that he was a watching brief for the brother of the deceased.
Now, Magdalene, maybe here's a little bit more pointed question that I should put to you. Is your client aware of a cooked-up plan to pin the murder of Senzo Meyiwa on the 4 or 5 accused, including accused number 1 to 4, who are represented by Advocate Teffo, a plan that has been cooked up all the way up until the president's office? In other words, is your client aware of the president coming in to cover up a crime which, according to Advocate Teffo, was committed by your client?
Firstly, a submission was made which I have in my possession. I don't have the docket. That submission was not responded to regarding the president. Secondly, we are not aware of any cooked up plan. We are subject to the court and we are subject to the process. We will comply in every way and in every level in terms of what the court determines and what it is requested. My client has never been an accused. She has remained a witness. Then it was told that she won't be a witness, and then she was a witness again, but she's never not complied. All of these allegations and speculations that have been made are not in the knowledge of ourselves. That is something that I cannot confidently and honestly, as a legal practitioner, breach my responsibility as an officer of the court to say that there is such a thing. My client is not aware. I would have been aware. When there was such a 375 docket, we were never called about it, except to be threatened in 2021 by a defense for 1 to 4 to go to hand themselves over. But there was no police officer that ever communicated with us in respect of any such docket. And that docket still remains unbeknown to ourselves.
Magdalene, appreciate your time. Let's leave it there for tonight. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks.
Kelly Khumalo's legal representation, Magdalene Moonsamy.